Hello, I'm back. Welcome. So, the much hot debated issue in the state of Virginia that is on the scene for the first time in education: corruption, crossing both party lines unapologetically. Here I sit in my Groomsday Prepper shirt. So I'm continuing to dissect the language of education, because when you change an entire language and continue to accept what you think what common terms are, and versus what they actually are, you're co-signing the stuff that's destroying our children. So just a quick recap from this. So this is episode 2. Last week I did episode 1. And so let's start with where should we start? This one, because it's really good. I always feel like I have to show how it's relevant.
We still need to do. Talked about apprenticeship programs.
This is
why productivity is productivity, and I think.
So this is the World Economic Forum 2020 with our governor. Keep in mind the words coming out of his mouth.
Look, the president wants to fix immigration. That's part of it. Legal immigration has to ultimately be part of the equation.
I would just add, there's 1 million more job openings than there are people willing to take those jobs today in the United States.
Yeah.
And so we're going to figure this out because we have to. And when you look at the opportunity to sell a new product or open a new facility or launch a new service, and if you don't have the right folks to do it, go find out how to do it. And you partner with a community college and you come up with a job training program and you.
So I always feel like it's super important to give the context for the conversation regarding that. Prior to becoming our governor, he was at the World Economic Forum stating that there's 1 million more jobs than we have people for. Well, we know that they're not recruiting adults for these jobs. And then also I would like to remind you also that who's deciding what our children learn? That would be the World Economic Forum. Top 10 skills identified. Okay, there's like, why are these people, is the main question, determining, the World Economic Forum determining what our children in Virginia and across the nation, what they need to learn based on what these people need to fill the jobs that Governor Youngkin was just talking about they can't fill. And then I was at an Orange County School Board meeting, I've said this before, where their strategic planning company, Cambridge & Associates, said, what? That 50 to 60% of the jobs these children have not been created yet. So, just a recap. And then, let's see, Ms. Gadara. This is always great.
To become a reality, Virginia also needs to be the best place to learn. So everything that we do in the next 4 years in the Youngkin administration will be guided by our North Star to prepare every single learner for success in life, in our economy, our democracy, and in our communities. Everything we do in education will be shaped by this goal. And how will we know we'll be successful in the long term? We have 3 benchmarks we're going to use. 1, graduates of Virginia education institutions will be hired into family wage supporting jobs, and they'll be actively engaged and productively engaged in civic life. 2, companies will be attracted to, remain in, and grow in the Commonwealth due to the quality of the talent pool. And 3, the Virginia economy will grow. One of the most shocking parts about my introduction into this job is the reaction that
So that's Gadara. I've shared that 100 times in different versions. So I'm not going to beat that dead horse. So, my friend Allison mentioned the gears. If you guys can process things at a level of like blockchain, I would follow her. So she talks about the language of ed reform. While we're stuck on like vouchers and school choice and all that stuff, she was talking about this back in 2018. Innovative assessments, whole child, eliminating seat time. We're seeing that now with this movement that children earn credits. They don't have grade level competency. They no longer have age cohorts, as they're calling them. And this can be seen, so what do I do? When I can say that I know what I know to a level to which I can go, unfortunately, fight across party lines. There's manual, in 2009, this manual here from the VDOE is where I found it. Defining 21st Century Education. And then there's this one for a Council for Strong America, Building the Pipeline for Virginia's Workforce for Tomorrow, Pre-K-12. And then you get into UNESCO. And I love when people call me a conspiracy theorist because, unfortunately, in today, evidence is fact, which it's not. And fact and proof is conspiracy theory. So 1973, UNESCO wrote this beginning document called Learning to Be, the world of education today and tomorrow. And if you guys don't know about Goals 2000, and then in 2015 they did the Incheon Declaration, which is Education 2030. And that's all, UNESCO, World Bank, all these people who have decided, companies and businesses decided the new road for education. I'm just doing a quick blow through. So KnowledgeWorks, if you don't know about them, and I know Cal, which then became Aurora Institute. KnowledgeWorks is about 20 minutes from me. KnowledgeWorks Global is about 20 minutes from me in Glen Allen, Virginia. I know Cal is a national global competency-based education global company that then became the Aurora Institute. And then last week we talked about this document here, a transformational vision in the United States. And it's got Weingarten, it's got, back then it was Lily Ecclestein from the NEA. But then you've got like the MacArthur Foundation, you got KnowledgeWorks. Let's see, you've got Johns Hopkins, you've got Brookings, you've got Walt Disney Company. So, I mean, this is like I'm sitting here with it in front of me. And this is, so just look up A Transformational Vision for Education in the U.S., Education Reimagined, and it's from September 2015. And it is literally everything that I've been talking about. Let me see, hold on, I'm gonna pull it up for you guys. It is everything wrong in education that they say is right. And what's probably the most deeply disturbing portion of it is how they keep reiterating that these are supposedly two opposing parties that have had this this new transformational vision. Let's see. We came together recognizing that we have strongly held and often divergent views on a number of current issues and controversies in public education. But now they are determined to create a vision of future education that could unite us and many others. Simply put, the current system was designed in a different era, so it has to be wrong, and structured for a different society. Who said society is different? That morals are different, that we should function different. Did you decide that, or did we decide that? Our economy, which is the main thing, economy. All of this is about the economy. Society and politics are increasingly at risk from an educational system that does not consistently prepare all children to succeed as adults and is is least effective for the children facing the greatest social and economic challenges. That is correct. It does sound pretty, doesn't it? No. And then you're going to get, again, the importance of skills and dispositions is also sparking a shift towards experiential learning. Okay, keep that in mind. Experiences. Nothing in education is being taught that is not surrounding, and including the new history standards of learning, currently in hot debate because it doesn't have enough. It's whitewashed, whatever you want to call it. No, the whole thing is wrong, front to back. You can't argue any of it from any point of view unless you understand what you're talking about. And then, so this is their commitment. Let me see if I can zoom in. The new commitment. The new Uniparty, New World Order, everybody bought into it because we said so, commitment. To enable all children to fulfill their full potential as empowered individuals, constructive members of their communities, productive participants in the economy, and engaged citizens of the U.S. and the world. Sorry, Amy Guedera. New Governor Yuckin. Jobs for the future. Where did you get that from? Oh, right here. So it goes on. So let me zoom out. Okay. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Students are expected to work with their assigned material and move along with their age cohort as years pass. That's wrong, guys. So having structured curriculum and grades that you have to complete a grade to go to the next one is bad, is wrong. Why do you think there's all this drive for like entrepreneurship and partnering with whoever? Lab schools. Guess what, guys? John Dewey had the first lab school, which is essentially an experiment with children. We're going to put children in colleges and partner them so that they can experiment on education policy together and then call that education. That's the new school choice that's coming in Virginia. Keep in mind, it cannot be a faith-based school, which violates the Constitution. So I'm waiting for them to put that in play here. And then I'm going to do what Maine did. And go to the Supreme Court. But, so grading and other assessment tools are designed primarily to assess results of learning rather than to improve learning as it happens. Well, yeah, you have to learn it before you can grade it. And then, so I want to get right here. So where's the part? Okay. So in there, the three main, now keep in mind, this was adapted from the work of the Council of Chief State School Officers. So if you don't know who CCSSO is, it is the State Superintendents Association. Except none of these, like the GA, the Governors Association, none of them are actually run by governors. They're all run by nonprofits, special, venture funds, whatever. That's who's driving education policy. And the governor, every governor is on it, but it's not run by them. They're just joined up with them. So the CCSSO is really important to know. So knowledge, what is knowledge? Okay, so last week we went over a learner is not a student. One, extremely important. Knowledge is not education. Two, okay. So these are really important, is that knowledge is the wisdom you get after you have the education, okay? You can't start with knowledge. It is a theoretical or practical understanding of someone or somebody. And then it goes in, so then you're going to see these keywords. World-class standards. Keyword. World-class education. What is that? It's a theoretical or practical understanding of someone or something. It's not fact. They're not teaching facts. Everything is about experiences. Global competency. When you think that, go back to knowledge. theoretical or practical understanding of someone or something. Theoretical, it's a theory. There are no facts being taught in school. Applied knowledge is another term to understand. Skills. So you have knowledge, which could be the only part of like actual learning going on in schools. It's not, but I mean, it's the closest thing. The rest of it is these non-cognitive skills, competencies, and dispositions. So these are the three main components. Skills, what are they? So when you see the word skills, so we're teaching social studies skills. We're currently not actually talking about a history standards of learning. We are talking about a history and social studies skills standards of learning. So the capacities, and let me zoom in again. The capacities and strategies that enable learners, not students, learners learn, they're not being taught. They are equal in the teachers are like the guidings. They are learning together. Their students are taught something. Learners are not. So Virginia is not for learners. Virginia is for earners, is what I say. Because it's actually a trainee model they use. So the capacity and strategies that enable learners to apply knowledge to novel situations, engage in higher order thinking. Kindergarten, they're teaching higher order thinking here in the state of Virginia. Engage in higher order thinking, problem solve, collaborate, communicate effectively, and plan for the future. Skills. So that would be critical thinking, problem solving, work collaboratively, metacognition, self and social awareness, creativity, and innovation. And then there's the dispositions. The behaviors and ways of being that contribute to learners fulfilling their full position. Agency, curiosity, initiative, resilience, adaptability. So take all these together. This is what the kids are learning. Self-control. I've said it's 100 times. I will continue to say it. Self-regulation is a big one that you need to understand. Kindergartners being taught self-control and self-regulation. You first ask why. Why it's evil, first of all, to ask a 5-year-old. And then you can bring in the medical aspect of how many kids have been given ADHD medication because they need them to be compliant and sit still. But so self-control in 5-year-olds is evil. But why? The why is because they need them to be able to sit in front of a damn computer all day. And you think about ethical behavior and civic responsibility. And then, so there's literally nothing. This document we went over last week. Sorry, I'm trying to find, where is it? I can't stare at a screen all day. I don't know how the kids do it. Where is it? Anyway, I'm going to move on. Okay, so it used to be, the old tradition was using assessments of learning, like at the end. But now we are living in assessment for learning and as learning. Assessment for learning is immediate feedback. So that's all the data collection. Everything is an assessment. Everything. If you're on a computer, it's an assessment. And then assessment as learning is assessments support the development of metacognition. Well, what is that? The understanding of how learners learn and who learners know themselves to be. This use of assessment provides the kind of self-awareness needed to become a better learner and develop higher order skills and dispositions. Okay, so when we talk about metacognition, like you'll see it a lot. It sounds okay, like, well, okay, so people really go, well, it just sounds too much, and they must know what they're talking about, and we have to get away from that. Understanding of how learners learn. And it's the same, what I tell people is that, so when I heard a delegate say it the other night, is that, so we need to teach children how to learn, not what to learn. A year ago, I would have bought into that was okay. So I didn't want them teaching I was thinking CRT. I don't want you teaching my child what. That's the problem, so our elected officials are still speaking that language. And you have to, so the truth is that how to learn is the problem. The what to learn is what they need. That's going to be facts. That's going to be arithmetic. It's going to be phonics. That's the what. The facts. Okay. The how to learn. So if you're going to speak about education, then you have to be able to speak education. Because if you're going to say that we need to teach children how to learn, then you're saying that you're going to teach them how to be collaborative, critical thinkers, and the elimination of the what. What? You cannot go from one to the other and skip the middle steps, because they're teaching the how before the what. They need the what before the how. They need the facts. They need the what they call drill and repeat. That's how you learn. That's what you do in elementary school especially. That's how you learn math. That's how you learn like flashcards, multiplication. They're not doing any of that. Why? Because the 21st century, this new future that they foresee that will happen, they don't need any of this. So therefore, we're not going to teach it to them. They need new math. They need to think like critical thinkers. So that's where that whole new math fuzzy weirdness, if you ever question that, comes in. And so let's pull up this great article. Where'd it go? I ran across this while looking up education excellence. From the Hill, and this was just this past August. Under threat, education requires global action. Okay, this idiot is not dumb enough to think that this just happened, by the way. Hold on. Sorry. So you guys want to talk about advances in robotics, quantum computing, augmented reality. New technologies made it possible for the world to witness gorgeous vistas detailing the very birth of the cosmos, blah, blah, blah. Our age is also the age of catastrophic climate change, growing racialized inequity, the ascendancy of a post-truth society, as well as a weakening of the practice of democratic citizenship. Now educators are being called to address ever more complex changes, but they can't do it alone. First, the basics. The purpose of education is cultivating healthy, flourishing, engaged children ready to learn, love, work, and serve the common good. That is not the purpose of education. Because you have decided, you, being the collective you, that is what you need for social justice, to be a democratic citizen. In short, it does what? It makes the planet a better place to live. And then he goes on to say, John Dewey, if you know anything about what I'm talking about, philosophy's most influential voice in education, anticipated two enduring ideas. Keep in mind, lab schools, John Dewey, 1896, I think, was the first one, and we're getting ready, Youngkin's getting ready to plow them through Virginia. Okay, keep in mind, John Dewey, same person. So the two enduring ideas, John Dewey, the most influential voice in education. These are the people that say, the same people that are writing about a post-truth society. Okay. education for democratic citizenship and lifelong learning is a process of living and not a preparation for future living. Horace Mann, the idea of free denominational common schools, Mann saw through them as fonts of civic knowledge where through the work of education, parties can become intelligible of each other. That uniquely American idea traveled the world. Parties can be intelligible of each other. Around the world today, however, education is being tested by 3 geologic force shockwaves. A transformed labor market is the most diverse in the history of work, one that places a premium on the skills needed to work simpatico with others, machines, and people. Others, machines, and people. Well, if others is not people, and then you have machines, what's the others? But a transformed labor market. So because the labor market transformed, not humanity, not the minds of children, not an American constitutional republic for the love of Christ. It is not a constitutional democracy. Okay, so rapid growing inequalities in economy and in society. And then COVID. The good news is that basic primary education is now a normative ideal over the world over. Enrollment of children in primary education is nearly universal. Hold on. So, the 3 challenges. You're going to go from quality, inclusion, to climate. Okay, so that's just an article that I found I want to show you guys. So I'll pull up what's next. Let's go to, here it is. No, it's gone. Sorry, my phone's ringing. See if I can even find it. Sorry. I'm going to pull up, I found the UNESCO glossary. The people who will tell you everything. Let's see. Here it is. I don't know how I found it. I was looking up one word and then, well, bam, there it was. So, we'll let the people driving education policy tell you the exact definition. So this would be the UNESCO International Bureau of Education. Glossary, written in 2013. Contemporary curriculum development processes more frequently involve public decision and consultation with a range of stakeholders, and the curriculum is progressively evolving into a topic of debate engaging policymakers, expert practitioners, and society at large. So they had to write a glossary because all of these terms were in such heavy debate. So you're going to say, okay, well, what does UNESCO or the UN have to do with what's going on in Virginia? Well, like I said, INOCAL, Aurora Institute, they were in the VDOE with UNESCO in 2017. That would be under Northam, talking about all of this stuff. So let's stop blaming one or the other. It's both parties. Let's see. What's a good word we want to pick out? What seems to be one I get questioned about the most? Keep in mind this was 10 years ago. We had no idea. Blended learning. Let's do that. We see that a lot now. Blended learning. Structured opportunities to learn which use more than one teaching or training method inside or outside the classroom through which at least part of the content is delivered online, also known as synchronous. Chesterfield County, where I live, has like 64 math classes that are taught synchronously versus asynchronous, which was COVID, when you're at home on the computer. Synchronous is in the classroom on a computer without a live human teacher. It would be like me talking to you, teaching you. We have 60-some math classes that are taught synchronously, blended learning. I really wanted to get a Bloom taxonomy, but that's a whole different show. Oh, child-centered approach, whole child. Placing the child at the notional center of the learning process in which they are active participants. So student-centered learning we're hearing about now, they were writing it 10 years ago. Giving children choices of learning activities, with the teacher acting as a facilitator of learning. So we're seeing come to fruition now, this is current language, student-centered learning. They wrote it 10 years ago. Wrote it, a glossary of it. Literally, it was not written 10 years ago. It was written far beyond prior to that. Collaborative learning. I really wanted to touch on this one because especially here in Chesterfield, a lot of parents had contacted me that their gifted child was now in a collaborative classroom and the schools were not letting them out. They wanted to take their gifted children out because why are they taking the gifted children and putting them in special ed classes? And I'm not saying, I'm not even going to get into why that's, I'm not going to try to be politically correct about that, but we can see a problem with special ed kids and gifted kids being put in the same classrooms together. I'm not being hateful, I'm not being anything like that. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And so collaborative learning, what it is a process through which learners at various performance levels work together. Let me zoom in. Learners at various performance levels work together in small groups toward a common goal. So, various performance levels. Collaborative learning, putting gifted kids in. Okay. It just derived from social learning theories, not education theories, as well as the socio-constructive perspective on learning. Is a relationship among learners that fosters positive interdependence, okay, not independence, interdependence, individual accountability, and interpersonal skills, okay. For collaborative learning to be effective, teaching must be viewed as a process of developing and enhancing students' ability to learn. The instructor's role is not to transmit information, but to serve as the facilitator for learning. This is what we're seeing now going on. The teachers are not teaching, they are facilitators. That's why our kids are getting dumber, and nobody cares. Because they don't care if they're getting smarter based on literacy and math, because that's what the kids are bombing SOLs, and nobody cares because that's outdated too. You can assess them all day all you want, but unless you're talking about the right things, you can assess them every day. You're going to assess them until they're dumb as hell, and the numbers will still tell you that they're dumb, and nobody will care. Why? Because that's never been the intention anyway. Let's see. Competence. Let's go to competence. Competence, okay, because competence-based curriculum and competency-based education seems to be like a big part we missed out on while everybody else was fighting Common Core, and we were believing that we didn't have Common Core. We have had Common Core all along. So here we are, 20 years behind with about 6 months to catch up. So what is competency-based education? Because we know that there are no curriculums in existence. It is education or curriculum that emphasizes the complex outcomes of the learning process, knowledge, skills, and attitudes to be applied to learners, rather than mainly focused on what learners are expected to learn about in terms of traditionally defined subject content. learner-centered again, and adaptive to the changing needs of students, teachers, and society. You will keep seeing society, 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 society. Okay? It implies that learning activities and environments are chosen so that learners can acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to situations they encounter in everyday life. Competency-based curricula, which is what we live under, okay, around a set key of competency and competencies. Castle, social emotional learning, has what? 5 key competencies. Castle SEL has about 70 companies that must align that are being taught across the United States. I would love to find a division that is not teaching one form of SEL, which is competency-based education, one set of key competencies, 5 of them. Social awareness, self-awareness, blah, 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 that have nothing to do with what they're telling you to do. They're telling you they're doing. Critical thinking. A process that involves asking appropriate questions, gathering and creatively sorting through relevant information, relating new information to existing knowledge. Critical thinking is so important in this because they're doing it in kindergarten. So take all of this into context the next time you want to talk about critical thinking. And remember, it's not coming at the end after you have the foundation, after you have the education. The knowledge, the wisdom comes at the end. Well, if all you care about is the knowledge, which is your experiences, and that's all you're talking about from kindergarten, pre-K, is their experiences. They don't have any experiences yet. So you're giving them experiences, and they're never getting the education that historically, which is what would have led us to the knowledge, the wisdom, the enlightenment. Okay? So critical thinking, next time you talk about it, remember, it's supposed to come at the end, not at the beginning. When it comes at the beginning, you don't ever get the foundation of learning, which is academics. If you only want them to be problem solvers, but you never teach them how to do anything other than new math, fuzzy math, round up. Where's my, here. I used to have a pre-made one. So think about it this way. Sometimes I have one laying around here. Okay. So our children are taught this. Let's say 13 plus 7. Okay. So instead of teaching, 7 plus 3 is a 0, and I'm on screen, and then you put up here and you add, okay, and then 1 plus 1 is 20. No, that's called arithmetic. Instead, they're taught 13, round down to 10, 7, round up to 10, and you get 20. But then, what did I do wrong there? Round down to 10. I don't know why this didn't work out right. Anyway, I don't remember my example. So you'd have 13 and 17. So for 13, you would round down to 10. For 17, you would round up to 20, and you get 30. That's a bad example because it's using 7 and 3. So I think I filled out too much today already. Let's do 16 and 9 is a good one. Okay. So we'll do 16 and 9. So instead of, that's 15, carry the 1, 25. That's how they would normally, that's called arithmetic. So instead of doing that, what they're doing is 16, you're going to round up to 20. 9, you're going to round up to 10. And you're going to get 30. But then you have to remember that you added 4 to 20. So you've got to subtract the 4 from 30. And then you added 1 to 9. So you've got to subtract that 1, which would be 30 minus 4 minus 1. And then you're going to land at 25. That's new math. That's critical thinking, problem solving. They're teaching our kids. That's no child will ever learn to love calculus, algebra, physics, any of it. They don't care about that stuff. Why? Because they're not going to need it for their new learners. So critical thinking. Critical thinking calls for persistent effort to apply theoretical constructs, theoretical guys, theory, to understanding the problem, consider evidence, and evaluate methods or techniques for forming a judgment. Critical thinking in kindergarten. Increasingly referred to as a key competence or competency in 21st century skill. Oh, this thing's big. Let me see what else I wanted to do. So, you know, it's really important, if not the most important thing to understand. Let me pull this over. To understand why UNESCO terms matter. Because, again, going to jump to Virginia. And I know Cal. So competency-based learning presented to Virginia Virtual Learning and Advisory Committee. Wow, Virtual Virginia, way prior to COVID. 2017, I know Cal. Okay. Redefining student success. What do we want students to know and how and be able to do to be successful and fulfilled in college, career, and civic society? Who did they test their BS out on? These divisions: Fairfax, Frederick, Loudoun, Cumberland, Henry, Albemarle, Roanoke, Chesterfield, big one, Virginia Beach. Guess who's a institutional member of INOCAL? Boop. Chesterfield County. Guess who else? Pearson, Intel, Blackboard. Guess who owned Blackboard when it was nothing until it was the biggest grading platform? Carlisle. Just a coincidence, probably. So this is from, let's see, again, evidence-based, real quick. To be evidence-based, you must have one well-designed, this is strong evidence-based, one well-designed and well-implemented experimental study. And then you move on to, you can still be evidence-based, quasi. Promising is well-designed correlational study. And then if it's still under evaluation, which means it somehow demonstrates rationale, that's everything. So when you say evidence-based, understand what you're talking about. And then this is from Governor Youngkin and Amy Goodera's commitment to Virginia. So high expectations. This is the all means all, guys. All means all. How can they say all means all? All cannot mean all, ever. You cannot educate all children to have education excellence, because it's not education excellence. Education excellence stands in contrast and is adverse to meritocracy. Okay. Understand that, number one. Education excellence means, versus what we used to do, which they called education perfection, is that if you can't have all children, equity, on the same platform, on the same plane, then you don't do it. So this is their guiding principle for Virginia education. All students deserve to be held to high expectations aligned to the need of the knowledge economy. We will prioritize resources for those students and communities furthest behind and teach comprehensive history. Keep in mind post-secondary readiness. They have completely gotten rid of college. It used to be college and career readiness. Now it's just post-secondary. They've gotten rid of, let me show you the slides here real quick of what that looks like in a 6th grade classroom. And then freedom of speech and inquiry. This is what I find really interesting. Freedom of speech and inquiry.
transgender students that the Virginia State Department of Education is putting forward. What's your response to those students who say our rights are being taken away?
First, I applaud the exercising of our First Amendment rights. I think that's a really—
So you support the protest?
It's a really important moment for us. As long as people are not violent, as long as they're—
Yeah. So there's that. That was 4 months ago. So that goes to global citizenship education, which everybody needs to understand that when you see standards rewritten for global citizens, and why Glenn Youngkin will never get rid of CRT like he promised, the transgender anything, is because it all lives under the umbrella of global citizenship, which is what all of this lives under. Our children are being taught to be global citizens. Why? For the betterment of the world. All of it. Everything is based on experiences and is teaching them under 100 different ways, every single way, to redefine them so that they are no longer individuals. They have to think of the betterment of the world, and that includes global citizen education. It's a thing. It's not just global citizen. It's every other word in the standards. So that includes anti-racist education, multicultural gender equality education, social justice education. So all of this falls under the same thing, which is why he can never get rid of it. So Global Education Coalition, Facebook, IBM, Google, Common Sense Education, Sesame. And then so we talk about meta learning. Okay, a 21st century learner has the same things that we just talked about that Weingarten and them wrote in 2015. Knowledge. What we know and understand. Okay, knowledge is not what we think of it. It's not the kids, it's the same thing as learner. Stop saying learner. Skills and your character make you a 21st century learner. And then I think, so if you guys don't know about the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development, you really should. Because that's where they're going to literally tell you what they're doing, and it's extremely disturbing. But let me pull up one last thing. Where are you? Sorry. I wanted to pull up a really interesting article. This would be James Lane. I found this under Aurora Institute. Okay. Let's see. This would be James Lane, our former superintendent, who is now the right hand of Miguel Cardona. And let's see. So now when we started the major education reforms we have done in Virginia over the last couple years, actually started before I arrived in 2018 with the new standards of accreditation, a new way of holding our schools accountable that looks more measurable. And he goes on to say, so we created Virginia's for Learners, originally as a campaign to talk about all the amazing things going on in our schools. And so Virginia is for Learners is built on three pillars. First is training our K-12 students to go deeper. Profile of Virginia graduate, definitely look that up. Creative thinking, communication, collaboration, and citizenship. But where's the one thing that I found the most interesting? So this is all, I mean, nothing has changed. Nothing, except we can point out the racism and the equity and all that stuff. But other than that, nothing else has changed. Absolutely nothing. Where is it? Virginia is for learners in the Commonwealth's commitment to public education and a belief that our job is to tell the story of great things going on in our public schools so that people who come to visit Virginia will stay and bring their businesses with them. I'm sorry. Who's North Star for, is that Amy Gadara or James Lane? James Lane, Northam, Gadara, Youngkin. Okay? So when we talk about what's changed in education, nothing. Nothing promised, much less nothing at policy level. Okay? So when you have James Lane, the most hated superintendent, especially in Chesterfield County, by conservatives and across the state of Virginia, because we got rid of Northam, didn't we? Didn't we? Wasn't that a big win? No, we didn't. Wait, listen to this. Again. To tell the story of great things going on in our public schools so that the people who come to visit in Virginia will stay and bring their businesses with them, because we are, this is based on CNBC in this article, Virginia is America's top state for business prior to Youngkin. He ran on a campaign of we have to bring businesses back here, but then I'll close with this really interesting portion. Where is it? Here it is. Oh, this is about Amazon. Sorry. My brain, I don't see how kids do this. My brain is like, but they go on to talk about workforce education. If I can ever find it. Ugh, of course I can't. Maybe it's right here. It's a world-class workforce, high-performing education system, and business-friendly regulations propel Virginia to the top spot. World-class workforce, high-performing education system propelled Virginia to this top spot of what? America's top state for business. Because of who? Our workforce, high-performing education system. Prior to Youngkin, Youngkin is now propelling, and what did he say? Hit the accelerator. Welcome to Dissecting Education Language 101. What it comes down to is this, plain and simple. Nothing is taught to children without experiences. Learners are not students because learners involves experiences. Knowledge is not education because knowledge is based off of experiences, but they're not giving them the education first. Okay? Everything is based on experiences. Everything, everything, everything. To sound like Amy Gadara. Including the new history standards, which are the ACLU, everybody's flipping out about because it's whitewashed, when they have to understand that it doesn't matter how much you want to call it what it is. Black children, white children, they're all going to be part of a workforce cog mechanical machine. The problem is that I'm bold enough to say that they're actually targeting those children that they say they're serving. To the ACLU, the NAACP, all of you that are so angry about the history standards, if you don't want to understand how they're targeting your children to be part of the cog machine, and they're dumbing down your learning because you're too worried about how much Dred Scott or if Sikh history is in the history standards, and to actually realize what they say or what they're doing to the children, you're underserving your own minority community by doing that. I'm not racist. It's not white privilege. It's not my fragility showing, because I do the research to find out. They say, yeah, they make it look really pretty, like welfare. We're going to help you out. We're going to give you more stuff. So of course it's going to look like better. No, it's not better. It's worse. They're targeting your children. All of our children, doesn't matter what color skin you have, are being predetermined in this personalized learning, which is a thing. They're figuring out your child's skills and competencies, and by age 10 or 11, every child is getting different education in their Chromebooks. That's driving them into what position these data sets predetermine your child's going to be best serving. It's called indentured servitude. what workforce education is. The UNESCO. So every time that you hear, Governor Youngkin talk about education excellence and workforce and brings another global company into here, think about who's going to staff that company. And this new transformation of education that we are, not me, but we as a collective are co-signing across both aisles. Because there's two very distinct political parties on almost every other issue, other than actual education reform, beyond diversity, equity, inclusion, beyond transgender, beyond dividing us by our skin and our color so we can't see the truth. There's one education agenda, period. And I'll pick some more of this apart for you guys later. Or do what I do and how I learned everything, and I went and I looked it up and I started to do research and I figured it out, and now here I am. Because I can't sit here and read every page of every 8,000 page manual that I have to you guys. You have it all. I've given you the breadcrumbs. I just hope that people step up and help save these kids, because they are being robots. You're going to have robot children. But hey, they are going to care about that climate, and they are going to care about the global economy. And, Mother Earth is crying, so we have to, we're going to live in a society where parents are going to be sent off like the giver because they have served their purpose and there's no more air on the earth. They're going to tell these children, and we're all going to be sent off to a special place to be put out of our misery because the earth can no longer accommodate us. That's literally where we're headed, and that's how bad it is. So I've been on here since about 8:30 this morning. I'm going to jump off. I got a whole bunch of calls I got to make, but if you guys want to learn more, reach out, and I'll make sure to update the info. I think on this I did or may not have, so you guys know how to reach out to me, but understand the lingo, and I will post the link where you can get the 600-page UNESCO glossary and start understanding the words coming out of the mouths of people, because nothing is what it is. We are in the, are you in the Matrix? I'm not. I'm no longer in the Matrix. So